Hi everyone, welcome to my next video. I'm going to talk about something today that I'm also extremely passionate about, and that has to do with whether you believe in yourself or not. And I realized something just about 5 minutes ago about my channel. I don't know what took me so long. Have you ever had like an epiphany, I guess they're called, when you're not really trying to figure anything out? But like a flash in your mind, all of a sudden something occurs to you and you think, oh my gosh, how could I have missed that? That's really true. Well, I just had an epiphany about my channel and why I enjoy it so much and why I find so much fulfillment in sharing my thoughts. And I have never said it this way before, so I'm going to try it the best way I can. And that is that when I read your comments about loss, about pain, about sadness, about grief, about confusion, about turmoil, and whatever else I forgot or missed, I understand it because that was me. And that's why I relate to all of you, because I get it. And I'm actually talking to you with my full and absolute, complete energy to heal. Because what I'm doing is I'm sharing to all of you what I never had for myself, but what I learned for myself. And I hope that makes sense. And I connect with all of these feelings because I've been there, I've felt it. Maybe not the same exact scenario, situation, person, place, career, relationship, whatever, but the overall feeling is the same. And I understand it, and I feel it, and I empathize with it. And through that empathy, I choose to offer whatever help I can. And it's kind of strange for me, and I don't know if this makes sense to any of you, but I wrote something in my memoir about returning to my childhood home. And it was really a beautiful part of this chapter, and I'd like to mention it again here. And I just spontaneously thought of this. Oh boy, I get so emotional. When I was 40, 45 maybe, I returned to the hometown that I love so much. And I recalled a memory when I was little where I would run from my home, away from the violence, away from the trauma, away from the chaos. Sometimes I would bring my dog, sometimes I wouldn't. And I would run barefoot along the sidewalk to the end of the road where we had a pond. It was called Red's Pond. It's still there. Behind the pond is an old cemetery. And I mean 16th century cemetery. And I loved it there. And I would run along the grass and to the top of the hill where there was a gazebo. And I would sit in that gazebo, which looked out over the ocean, and I would cry and cry and cry and wonder what the heck I was going to do. And I remember the torment. I remember the feeling of complete emptiness, the feeling of utter despair, and the feeling of feeling stuck because I had no escape. I didn't know how to escape. I was just a kid. And those memories stayed with me for years. And they still do. I still remember it as if I was there all over again. Now, when I was in my 40s and I had achieved, finally, freedom from all of those horrific feelings, and I had freed myself to embrace who I really was and to realize that I was a true survivor, I returned back to that gazebo. Now you might be asking yourself, why the heck would I want to even do that? Well, I didn't understand why I was going back there. I just felt compelled. And I follow my intuition 99% of the time. And so I drove down to Massachusetts. I parked my truck. I walked along the pond, remembering the good and the bad from my past. I walked along the gravestones, up the hill, and the gazebo was still there. Now, maybe it wasn't the same gazebo, but it looked like it. I sat on the same bench, or a bench similar, in the exact same spot, and I suddenly knew why I had returned. And maybe some of you cannot relate to this, but I have a different concept of time. I believe that the past, present, and the future all exists in another dimension that we do not understand, and in a dimension where we do not physically occupy. Yet on a spiritual plane, it is very real. And I returned to my past in that gazebo to save that little girl who had been confused and lost and devastated. And I reclaimed that spirit of that little girl. And I became strong for her. And as I sat there, I felt that lost spirit meld into me and disappear. Because she was no longer. That little lost, confused child was gone and replaced by the person I'd always been. The strong, the confident, the sane, and the spiritually aware person who I'd always wondered about, but could never voice. And when I left and walked away from that gazebo, I felt like I was carrying her in my heart. And I felt that the best thing I had ever done was to go back to that gazebo and reclaim my past and erase all that pain once and for all. And I love telling that story because that was a very beautiful and intense and profound experience for me. So what does that mean? What does that have to do with my YouTube channel? I feel the same way. I feel that I want to give back the same way that I did when I sat in the gazebo. And for anyone who can benefit from what I've learned, that is a gift from myself, even more so than a gift for you. And maybe not every video matters or has meaning, but that's okay, because I'm going to continue to share every single thing that I think might be helpful. And I just love telling that story, and I'm just checking the time on my phone. Now, what I would like to convey here is that most of my life, I doubted myself. And I'm going to tell you something interesting that I think was the driving force behind that. My mother had numerous issues, but one of which was that if I ever confronted her or disagreed with her, she would spin it to where I would feel that I was absolutely more worthless than I ever could have imagined. Now, as a child, I believed her because she was my mother, but that impression reached into my bones, and subconsciously, I lived for years fearing my own mind, my own thoughts, and was very susceptible to anyone else's opinions because I felt that they would shake my own reality. And if they shook my own reality, then what was left? If I didn't think much of myself already, what would I have to cling to? And I remember thinking about, that children's story, Humpty Dumpty, sat on a wall, and when he fell down, he broke into a million pieces. And that's how I felt that my mother had the power over me to break me into a million pieces. And what if I couldn't put myself back together? What then? And so I I held back being myself. I held back sharing my true self because if my mother could break me into a million pieces, then other people could too. Now that uh, does not make sense, but when you've been raised this way, you're brainwashed to believe that. And I wonder if that's a lot of the fears that people have today. And my best um, encouragement for all of you is that if you doubt yourself, do it anyway, because the people who are judging you are probably a whole lot more insecure than you are. And who cares anyway what they say? Hold strong to who you are. If you doubt yourself, don't let doubt keep you from trying. Don't do what I did for years by holding back and missing out and not discovering all of those wonderful things you could have done despite your doubt. And I carried that doubt within me, never telling anyone that I doubted myself, appearing strong on the outside because I had to. I had to go to work. I had to be a mom. I tried to be the best wife to a husband who badly mistreated me. And I already talked about that because I thought if I ever really um, said what I really felt, which I often did, he'd shatter me yet again, just like my mother did. And I didn't think I could put back all the pieces if I ever fell apart completely. And so, because of that fear, I held on to that false self to please everyone else, knowing all the while that I was shrinking more and more inside, wondering if the real me even still existed. And so, when I hear comments from some of you who feel that way now, um, I absolutely get it. And I want to be that bright light, like the fire behind me, to instill in you that even if you don't uh, feel sure of yourself, do it anyway. Ignore those naysayers. Don't think about things in terms of success or failure. And I did a video on that too. Because failure is just a word. It's a word someone came up with and put in the dictionary and supposedly has meaning. And I think it's more destructive uh, than actually the word success. Because the success can mean so many different things on so many different levels. And success might be just the smallest thing that you didn't even expect that you could do. And success happens in degrees. And success is not one giant, huge discovery or achievement. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of effort and resilience. And the most amazing things can happen when you try, even if you don't believe in yourself. Because when you do something despite not believing in yourself, you're actually telling your mind that you do. Because you can consciously say to yourself, I don't think I'm going to be very good at this. But do it anyway. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to discover that you did better than you ever thought. And then your subconscious is going to accept what your conscious just did. And your subconscious is going to make better things happen. And I can talk more about that too, because the power of our mind is just amazing. Now the light's getting really strange in here. I hope this video comes out. I can put on a light with my Jackery power station, and I probably should have, which I will do in future videos in here because, gosh, it's only 3:30 and look how dark it's getting. So I hope you enjoyed my story about returning to the gazebo. And honestly, I don't feel the urge to return anymore. But if I do, it won't be with the same um, focus, because that sad, lost, desolate little girl is no longer there. She's gone. She's gone because she's been replaced, and she's been saved. Saved by the future me. And so I thought maybe you'd enjoy that story. And so, again, I just want to tell everyone, um, I get it. I understand you. I may not know you personally, but I can read through the comments and feel your pain and your own personal situation. And for those of you who have found peace and contentment, I get that too. And so my epiphany is, this is why I enjoy my channel, because I can relate to all of this on such a personal level. And because I can relate, I hope to offer something for all of you, or for as many of you as I can. Thanks so much, everyone. Please, as always, comment, ask me whatever you'd like. If there's anything that I didn't say clearly or explain, or something you'd like me to talk more about, I would love to. And I'm an open book. I really am. And I just love being helpful, because in a sense, when I hear someone in pain, I remember that old me, that young me, and I'm connecting on that level. Not as you as children, but as people in pain. And so with that, thank you very much. I so appreciate you all. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Do something kind for yourself. Treat yourself to something. Even if you don't feel like it, do it anyway. And thanks so much again, everyone. Take care.